Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the defining moments and the challenge that shape who we have become. Today, we'll be joined by Tiffanie Janowitz, a high performance entrepreneur, mentors, and author who help people stop settling for fine and start building life and business that feels aligned, powerful, and free. It's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So, Tiffany, what were some of the challenges that actually shape you into who you are today?
Oh, man, I mean, I have reshaped my identity several times within my life, and really the power behind that was my ability to find my voice and stay in alignment to myself. My most recent challenge, though, that really solidified my why of why I
Yeah,
am in
amazing.
personal development and why I am on a mission to serve others with that was some health concerns that I had. I had some concerns and I had expressed that to a few different providers, and the concerns were just dismissed. And I was told that I was fine several times, but because of that strength of the inner voice that I was sharing with you, I had the courage to push back to, and that's an intimidating thing, to push back to providers that we rely on them to guide us correctly and to, tell us the next best practice. And in a situation like that, where I was pushing back a little bit, I just felt in my heart that there was something more that wasn't being answered and we needed to dig a little deeper. And in those circumstances, we have the choice to shut that down or to listen to that voice. And I'm really grateful that I did, because again, it gave me the courage to push and ask for more tests and more, to dig a little bit deeper. And it actually ended in a breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I wouldn't have listened to that and I would have shut that down, it would have essentially cost me my life, because I would have waited longer and things would have progressed much further than they were. So there were some miracles with that, but that definitely was shaping as far as, what makes me who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Wow, amazing. It really a whole lot to bear, and it's the fact that I'm just glad that despite it, you still show up with your voice and still do what you do
Yeah.
today. And it's really amazing. Yeah.
Thank
So, what
you.
is the personal infrastructures, and why is it so important for high performance to avoid burnout?
Personal infrastructure is, I mean, for a lack of a better word, it's like it's our foundation of, I mean, we can liken it to the infrastructure of a building, right? Like when you think about a building being built, you have the framework, you have the frame of a building, steel rods, or like steel beams go up, or wood framing for a home. There's structure that goes around that. And we really need the same thing in our personal lives, as far as the systems in place to keep our habits going, especially keep our habits going when we have pressure come up, or when we have emotions heightened,
Yeah.
or energy exhaustion. I mean, there's different, we are human, and so we are going to feel a lot of different wavelengths of highs and lows. And if we build an infrastructure that can withstand those moments, then that is really what sets us up to continue along a growth path rather
Yeah.
than set us up for something that's going to crumble. So that really is the importance of personal infrastructure, because life only gets busier, things only get more complicated. And so if we can simplify, and make a sure foundation, then we're setting ourselves up for some success.
Yeah, amazing. I think I love the way you actually just use the infrastructures and the way you explain it. It just speaks volume to building. Imagine you building a high tower building without a good foundation. At the end of it is, yeah, even the way the scripture describe it, that, yeah, you can't build a very lovely built houses without first planning and setting the basis before you actually more like get to kind of get the work started. And it's really amazing just hearing how you describe it.
Thank
So
you.
Tiffany, many people actually feel stuck even when their life looks successful. What keep them from stepping into real freedom?
I think with freedom, when we think about freedom, everybody's definition of freedom is different, right? My definition of freedom is going to be different than yours. That's going to be different
Yeah.
from our neighbors, right? And that's a beautiful thing, that we all have different definitions of freedom. And when I step into a space of coaching someone to find that definition and to step into living in alignment to that, we really have to dial it back to exactly what we were just talking about, of those systems in place and the identity that you tie into being able to sustain that freedom. So let's take analogy of someone that wants to start working out, right? That someone that wants to take care of their physical health. We're not doing that because we want the six pack, or like, because we want to be waking up and going to the gym early, or, none of that is our true driver of why we would physically work out. When we think about working out, we're doing that for our overall health, to improve our health, to then be able to show up in whatever roles we need to. For example, I'm a mom of a 4-year-old little boy, and I need to be physically fit to be able to play with him. I
Yeah.
want to be physically fit so I
Yeah.
can keep up with him. So when we're running around at the park, I don't have to say, hang on, mom needs a break because I'm physically exhausted, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
So true.
so when I think about the concept of working out, right? I'm not saying I'm working out because I want to be at the gym. I'm saying I'm someone who works out because staying present with my family is something that's important to me. That's a different identity tie-in than someone who is, physically fit at the
Yeah.
gym. It's a different identity piece, and it drives me differently. So then on the days when I'm tired because that same little boy maybe woke up in the middle of the night, and maybe I don't want to go to the gym the next day because I'm tired, well, the identity piece of me says I'm going to the gym so I can stay present with my family, because that allows me to stay fit, to be able to keep playing with them. So
Yeah.
it's really reframing how we're looking at how do we achieve freedom? What does that look like? And then what do I need to be
Mhm.
able to step into that and achieve it?
Amazing, amazing, amazing. I think it just speaks volumes being that if we approach freedom from this particular perspective, I think it becomes easier being that you know what you ought to put in and you know what the
Hmm.
outcome should look like. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
love that you brought up that, like, what's yours to protect, because at the end of the day, I am the only one in control of myself. I can't control many things
Yeah.
around me, right? Which gives us both the understanding that if something's not going my way, well, I'm the problem, but the beauty of that is I'm also the solution. And how
Yeah.
amazing to put that power back in my hands to take control of that and change it how I want to.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. So how do you help people rebuild confidence and identity after everything fall apart?
When we look at our infrastructure and we look at where we're wanting to go with our goals, being able to accept that failure will come is a superpower. Oftentimes when we get setbacks, and or an unexpected circumstances come in, and all of a sudden my habit's broken because I haven't done whatever habit it is a couple days in a row or something like that, being able to understand that we are going to fail over and over and over, the key to it is how quickly are you going to recover? How quickly are you going to be able to say, okay, what did I learn from that? Do I need to change anything? Or was it just a slip up? Let's analyze it, and, like, let's take some data away from that, and reframing again that the setback, or, the failure doesn't have to be shameful. It doesn't even have to be anything negative if you reframe that and say, okay, this happened for a reason, as cliche as that may sound, right? But why did this happen? Instead of the why, say, what do I need to learn from the situation that just happened? Take your data away and get right back on the horse. It's that top 1%, like that's the difference maker between the high performers and those that are not going to continue with their growth trajectory. That's the difference, is the acceptance of I am going to fail and I'm going to keep going after that failure comes in.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think when you just said this now, I just remember a particular quote that really helped me at a point in my life where failure was so coming into being that at one point I was like, I almost labeled myself as a failure. And when I saw that quote, it was so reassuring. And yeah, very lovely being that it just speaks volumes to the fact that, yeah, failure will definitely come, but accepting it and seeing new ways of actually moving on is really key. And the quote says, fail, keep failing until you don't fail anymore. That is what we call persistence. And the way you actually make it, I was like, wow, like that I
Yes.
should keep failing, like because each time I keep failing, it's no longer failing, which is the previous one, but failing forward to a particular point where I no longer fail again. And it
Yeah.
was really amazing, and it really changed my perception towards what failure is.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I love it. It really does. It changes your perception of the failure has to happen. I mean, if you
Yeah,
think about it, if you think about someone that you want to learn from or someone that's doing something, if you think of one of your goals, someone's achieved one of your goals before, right?
yeah,
So that's typically someone that you're looking up to. You don't want to learn from someone who has not failed because
yeah.
then when those speed bumps come, and you say, "What happened when this happened to you?" Then and they say, "I have no idea." It's the failures that make us more
Yeah.
well-rounded. It puts more in our tool belt. And when we have the ability to separate ourselves from like a shameful feeling or,
Yeah.
any type of negativity, then it lets that persistence come in. And
Yeah.
consistency is the beauty of any achievement. It's the
Yeah. So
consistent
true.
part that you keep showing up.
Yeah. So true. I think more like I think the biggest part most times where people get it wrong is trying to separate trying to separate who they are from the actual failure, because sometimes it can be clothed with shame. It's already it's what will people think about me, and this
Yeah.
level of perception. And I think for me, the reason why to make it easier is the fact that I just have some mental models that make it easier for me, being that I was like, wow, Thomas Edison has to try kind of the lightning bulb, have to try some numbers of time before he was able to get it. And so many others who are billionaires today, all through their life, they bankrupt at one point or the other before they actually get to. I'm like, if Thomas Edison has to go through these numbers, that means I'm still playing. I'm not doing any. I'm not doing
Mhm.
anything. What like it just having those things make me able to kind of separate who I am from the shame, the bruise that comes with failure, from people perception, and yeah, from every single thing that people might actually more like label you as owing to the failure.
Oh, you
Yeah,
just you just unpacked so much there because if you can separate yourself from
yeah,
the situation, and I love doing like the power of the question of why, right? So
yeah,
like, why did that fail? Oh, it failed because I was tired. Why were you
yeah.
tired? Oh, I was tired because, keep asking why and peel that
Mm,
back, peel it back, peel it back. But that exercise alone often lets us do the separation
yeah, so
because when
true.
you keep asking and you keep peeling it back, when you get 5 7 layers
Yeah,
deep, now we're just talking about a very simple data point at that point, and it's no longer, well, it was because I did blah blah blah. Now, I'm not talking about not taking responsibility.
yeah,
That's a different concept, right? But
yeah,
not tying yourself to that. I love that you brought that up because that's a very different concept.
yeah,
And the concept of like what other people think about us, that should never be the
yeah.
reason
Shouldn't
that
be
you
this.
stop striving for anything.
Yeah, so true. Thank you, Tiffany. Oh, so discipline versus alignment. Oh, how can listener know when know which one they need to focus on to create sustainable growth?
That's a great question. So I really think it ties into what you were just mentioning of when we think about the concept of discipline and we think about hurdles that may come in the way of
Yeah,
keeping us consistent and keeping the discipline going, right? Oftentimes there are outside sources that start playing into that. And we start worrying about what is so and so going to think about what I'm doing? Or, there are outside influences that start to come into that. And when we think about discipline, discipline truly starts from the inside out. And the biggest root of that is self trust. And that's really where I help people identify. When I first start working with people one on one, when we start to just take inventory, taking inventory is one of the very first steps because we all have our own data in
yeah,
front of us. We have more data personally than I think we're ever aware of.
yeah,
When we take a lot of inventory, and then when we start to see patterns and recognize things without discipline in them, then one of my first questions is, do you trust yourself? And it's a simple yes or no question. And sadly, oftentimes the answer is no. So then what do we do to start taking the steps to rebuild that trust with ourselves? Because that's the other beautiful part of it is, yes, the answer may be no, I don't trust myself. But the beauty there is you can rebuild that. Your brain is a really, really powerful machine, and we have the ability to form new neuroceptors in our brain every single day. And when we rebuild trust within ourselves, that is a new pathway that's happening in our brain. And once we prove ourselves once, that neuroreceptor that just formed and that new neural pathway can't be unbroken. It's a really incredible, beautiful part of our brain. So that proves to ourselves, I did it once, let's repeat it and do it again. And it's that small brick by brick that then all of a sudden I'm subliminally building trust with myself because of the patterns that I'm starting to repeat or the commitments that I'm following through on. It doesn't have to be anything big. But if you tell yourself you're going to do something, simply following through, that's the first step in building that. We're talking about discipline as a whole. That's really where I ask people to start is you've got to build the trust within yourself because you'll never be able to show up as the leader that you want to be and ask others to trust in you if you don't trust yourself. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Difficult. How do you make difficult decision when there is no clear answers, and what framework will help you navigate uncertainty?
So the self-trust is going to be my first piece of that in uncertainty, because if I can rely on myself to be brave enough to make a decision, even if I'm uncertain it may be the perfect one. If I wait for the perfect clear decision to make, then I'm going to be waiting a long time and my growth is going to stall over and over. But if I have the courage, again, all of these things that we've talked about, all leading up to this, it all goes together. And if I have the courage to try and I'm okay to fail, then things are going to be uncertain, but I'm going to take action and I'm going to fail. And then I'm going to get a little bit of clarity through that failure. And then I'm going to keep taking action, probably keep failing. But as I gather those data points, then the data points there are what give me clarity. And if I continue to keep showing up for myself, I'm continuing the self-trust so I can keep that building, but I can gather the data points of saying, okay, what can I learn from that? What can I learn from that? This is getting more clear. This is getting more clear. And all of a sudden we're pulling out of that fog and we're really fine tuning whatever that piece of uncertainty was. Well, now it doesn't feel so uncertain. But taking action is the common denominator there, because if the action is not being taken, you're gonna sit in a place of uncertainty for a very long time.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, taking action is really, really key, and I think just the way you make reference of it, when discipline that is actually in check, and over time you actually do what it says you are going to do. I think making decisions become more easier, even if you don't have all the whole pieces, being that you trust yourself and you know that whatsoever thing you actually commit yourself to, you are definitely going to show up and have it done.
Yeah, I'll take you back to like even with my breast cancer diagnosis that I went through last year. The one part of like the discipline that was not changing were my personal infrastructure. My habits were the one thing that didn't change through that entire journey. So before I went into my double mastectomy, I was the strongest mentally, spiritually, physically. I was so strong in those areas because I had stayed disciplined, that it then allowed me to show up after my surgery and continue to get my strength back because my body knew how to do that already. It was already embedded into my machine, right? And it was doing that both before and after my surgery, which was so important to be able to prove to myself we did the discipline before, so all we have to do is continue carrying it. Sorry about that at all. I was sharing that the one part that stayed very consistent through both before, during, and after my diagnosis, through my surgery and everything, were my habits. It was my discipline in my habits, that your habits aren't shiny objects. They're not these fun, exciting moments throughout the day, but those being disciplined in those habits are what allow us to keep everything in check. So my body, I was sharing that, I was the most like mentally sound I had ever been going into that. As weird as that may sound, going into, such a shaky diagnosis, I also was the strongest spiritually. I was the strongest physically that I had been. I had really worked hard over the year prior, which is not a coincidence to me at all, but I had really worked hard to keep that discipline in check and keep those habits going. And that carried me right through my diagnosis, through my surgery, through my recovery. Because when I came out on the other side of my surgery, I wasn't starting from zero. I was starting from a place of very consistent discipline over years that I was able to say, okay, body, we know how to heal. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I was able to continue a positive mindset because it wasn't my day one on that.
Yeah.
It was something that was a well-oiled machine at that point that allowed me to sit in some really uncomfortable, painful moments, but say to myself, I am strong and I am healing and
Yeah.
I am, feeding myself full of all of these positive information or affirmations that really did contribute to my healing. I'm very confident that that helped in the energy that was going back into my body and just my ability to keep my mind in a positive that my body needed it to be.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So how do you balance scaling business without sacrificing health, family, or personal fulfillment?
Hmm, that's a great question. And the way I don't love the term like work-life balance. I don't
I don't
think that
like
that
it too.
exists.
I don't like you.
Entrepreneur. Yeah, when
Hmm.
you're in the entrepreneur space, it's like, no, that doesn't exist. I really love the word integration, and that's why
Yeah.
like integrating infrastructure into our lives is such a principle that I teach. And it is exactly that. Like, what can I integrate together versus what do I really need to delegate out or keep on my plate? It all really boils down to being very, very intentional with my time. When we are intentional with our time, we create time in every single day.
Yeah.
If you are truly being proactive with who gets your attention, where are you spending your energy, what projects do you need to be plugged into versus delegating out, right? And when we're
Yeah.
talking about high performers and business owners, like, like we're talking about, that is even more important by tenfold because your plate is getting more full, especially if you're looking at scaling anything, right? Then things are going to grow, your target gets bigger.
Yeah.
And so being intentional about my time and being very, very present of where I am. So if I'm playing with my little boy, he gets 100% of my attention. He's not going to get 10% because that's not what he deserves. He deserves 100%. Just like when you and I are having this conversation, I'm 100% with you. And that's what every single person that we interact with deserves 100% of us. But it's very easy to get distracted and pulled away and
Yeah.
do different things. But if we're intentional of our time delegation, that allows us to stay present and then you can grow.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. I think this perspective is very lovely and sit well with me other than work-life balance. Because
Mhm.
the bias I usually have about work-life balance is the fact that a whole lot of business owner when they just starting out, they'll be like, yeah, do what you need to do to keep the business flowing. So that narrative is not created. But once they hit a particular margin in terms of their finances, especially the top guys, they will not start coming around. Yeah, you guys have to look over this and that, work-life balance. I'm like, but when you were actually like starting out, there was nothing like
Yeah.
so you just being intentional about everything that needs to be done when it comes to
Hmm.
family. You know what? Yeah, you should know
Yeah.
that at least the timing you actually work on up to reduce being that you have to give priority to family when it comes to finance. You give a whole lot of so you just you more like giving it time to each and everything, being intentional about it. Yeah, I think that is the balance between it compared to you
Yeah.
say work life
And
balance.
there are things that I'm like, I want my little boy to be learning some of these things.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
him to be like, his mom is a really hard worker, and look at what we've achieved together. I also want to teach him skills. So
Yeah,
as soon as he's ready for it, I empower him and let him start learning some things. I wish I would have learned that when I
yeah.
was at a younger age than when I did learn some of those skills. And what a favor we can do for everybody. If we're empowering one another, that's incredible.
Wisdom. Lastly, when it's deep time to walk away from a life or business that look good on paper but feels wrong. in your gut.
If you have truly identified your core values, which every person should go through this exercise, you should know those core values like the back of your hand. And a good exercise, this is going to sound extreme, but a really good exercise to be able to identify this is if you have your core values on paper and I can ask you, would you die for this core value? If the answer is no, it's not actually a core value. But if the answer is yes, then you really are able to make decisions around that framework, around those core values. And so when something is not feeling aligned with you, if it's not feeling truly aligned and it's not lining up with your core values, it's a no. And then you have to rely on that self-trust and that courage to walk away from it, whether it's personal or business.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Tiffany, for my audience who want to reach out to you, who want to learn more from you, and who want to connect with you, how can they reach out and where is the best platform?
I've got my website is a great place to reach out and connect. It's tiffanijanowitz.com. I of course give you a little curve in the game. My name is not spelled with a Y, it's spelled with an IE, but I'm sure those will be in the show notes. And then on
Yeah,
Instagram, Tiffany.Janowitz is the best place, honestly, to reach me on Instagram. I'm always over there and love connecting with our listeners and my audience through there as well.
yeah, definitely. I'll reach out about that too, and it's going to be on the show notes. So, Tiffany, what will be your final words to anyone going through tough time now, either through ailments or through struggling with one particular thing or the other? And yeah, they don't know what the outcome is going to be like. What will be your final word of encouragement to them?
My final recommendation and advice, if you are feeling in a place of uncertainty, is to know that there is always another way to come to a solution and to come to a resolve. So if you've received an answer or a lack of answer to whatever feels uncertain, stay curious. Continue asking why and peel back that onion, because as you stay curious and you ask different angles of questions, you will come to a different resolve and things don't
Yeah.
have to feel so uncertain.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you, Stephanie. I think this what you just said just speak volumes to uh one Steve. I think yeah, Steve more like one could say was stay hungry, stay foolish. Yeah,
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. Stephanie, thank you for sharing your journey of courage, reinvention, and self advocacy. Your story shows us that even when life throws unexpected challenge at us, we can create alignment, freedom, and purpose. To our listener, you can connect with Stephanie's book and Discovering Call by exploring her framework at Tiffany dot com. The link is going to be on the show note. Thank you for tuning into the Making of Me podcast. Once again, a pleasure and an honor having you on the show, Tiffany.
Thank you.